Well, as I've shared with some of you before, about 2 years after the Los Angeles civil unrest following the Rodney King verdict, Colleen, my then girlfriend, and I had gone out to see a movie in Burbank. I had a car that was a bit out of character for a University of Southern California student, a 1981 gray Camaro with deep tinted windows. It was oxidized and sometimes got looks as we would come around different places. And as we finished the movie, it was probably 1 a.m. And as we were driving out of the parking garage in Burbank, we were pulled over by a police officer. We sat there and I hadn't been speeding. I wasn't exactly sure what had happened. And the officer came up and knocked on the dark tinted window. We rolled it down and looked in, asked for our license and registration, but then said, we've had reports of a car stereo thief in a vehicle matching your description, but you don't look like car stereo thieves. And he returned our license and registration and sent us on our way. Did not open our trunk. For all we could have had a trunk full of Blaupunkt, Alpine, all the audio equipment in the world. The officer did not check. If we just mind our own business and stay in our lane, we will all be treated equally, right? Just to each his own, go on out there. But today we have the question, who is my neighbor? Do we just mind our own business, or do we look at other instances when the response by the officers would not have been the same? Now, in the story we just heard, you have a lawyer, kind of trying to get one over on Jesus a little bit. And the first question he asks is, what must I do to inherit eternal life? In other words, how do I punch my ticket to heaven? And this particular lawyer thinks that he has it figured out. He is asked by Jesus and responds correctly to love the Lord your God with all of your heart and mind and soul and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. He thinks he has it all figured out. But as Jesus is known to do, he responds to the question with a question. And who is my neighbor? And then he responds with the story that we most often know as the Good Samaritan. Now, you see, for the lawyer in the story, and for many in Jesus' audience and Jesus' time, a Samaritan would have been anything other than good. Samaritans and Jewish people were enemies in every sense of the word. Things had developed over hundreds of years involving land disputes, misunderstandings about religion and who worshiped God properly, people intermarrying. Jewish people viewed Samaritans as completely inferior and other than them. In their own camp, don't associate with them. So in this story, when we have the passersby, we have the equivalent of me, a clergy person walking by in the robe, leaving this man who has been beaten and robbed down in the gutter. We have another busy person walking by, completely disregarding him. And the fact that Jesus makes the hero of the story a Samaritan would have been a slap in the face to the lawyer who was asking these questions and to all of the Jewish people who would be listening. You don't associate with Samaritans, much less lift them up as heroes in a story. See, over many generations, camps had developed. Polarization had developed. This binary thinking that you were either for us or against us had developed. Does that sound familiar at all? This past week, and unfortunately for the past several years, people have been going deeper into camps by political party, by what news channel they watch, by what church they attend, by what other house of worship they attend, or not one at all. People are galvanizing within their own camps, and hatred is spewing. I know not everyone is on social media, but those who are often wanting to tune out. There are voices of polarization everywhere in that world. And I'm very thankful this past week to have seen many voices of reason and love. And one of the most poignant and wonderful things that I read online, I was going to quote today, but then I realized that I had the author living in my home. And so at this time, I'd like to invite my wife of 20 plus years up to share a post. Colleen, she blogs in a place called the Fulcrum Chronicles, and for those who don't follow blogs, think of Irma Bombeck, Herb Caen. If they were working today, they would be blogging, among other things. So Colleen shares her voice. She did not ask to speak. I begged her to speak. So thank you, Colleen.
Thank you. Good morning. I've been blathering on for months, complaining about people who hate. I love love, but I hate hate, and I hate haters, a category I've recently lumped a large number of people into, taking it upon myself to determine they are the terrible ones for hating in the first place. When I realized how much I hated all those haters, I knew I had a problem, and I knew I wasn't alone. I'm not supposed to hate, right? I'm a Christian and a pastor's wife, but I've fallen down on the job. I feel it both when the police harm innocent people and when people harm the police who put their lives on the line to protect us. I find myself hating action and inaction. I hate what we've become, but also what we used to be. Power and the absence of power, obsessiveness and ignorance, braggadocio and spinelessness. I hate racism and sexism and xenophobia and homophobia and fear-mongering, and then I find myself hating the people I have determined haven't hated that stuff enough. I hate reading the news, but I hate not reading the news. And don't even get me started on the comments section of any article about anything, whether it's politics or the Golden State Warriors. The comments section is where my fury gets a real workout. I hate inequality and justice, which I think we're supposed to, but I can feel almost that same level of anger towards everyone from Cleveland Cavaliers fans to anyone who disagrees with me on anything, which means I've covered every single one of you, family and friends and everybody. And that's just the darkness contained in my own heart, the heart of one white, almost middle-aged, middle-class, usually chipper Christian mom who wants peace and love and unity and for everybody to be nice to each other. I want equality and justice and a better world for my children and for your children. But how can a desire for all that good thrive and produce in a heart that is taken up with so much darkness? Which makes me the problem. I can't see your heart. I don't know what's going on in there or what's going on in the heart of Gone Fishin' Phil 63, whose comments on news articles have made me think he's the devil incarnate. Knowing what's in there is not my job and it's not my business. All I can know is what's happening in my own heart, and it's not pretty. And it's not getting me anywhere, and it sure as heck isn't helping anybody else. So I'm gonna start there, because what I've been doing lately is not working. The other night, to add insult to injury, I realized I'd been reading Martin Luther King Jr. wrong all this time. John had posted a quote, an MLK quote to Facebook. It's a quote he's had to go to again and again when societal tensions seem to be rising. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. It's beautiful, right? I love it, but I've been doing it wrong. All this time I've been reading it and thinking, yeah, take that, idiots on the other side. I love love, and you morons are screwing it up, securing your place on the wrong side of history. Me and Martin Luther King Jr. are right again. But no, the great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. seems to have been talking to me. I'm not going to stop hating by hating some more. The darkness inside of me isn't going to leave so I can make room for more darkness. Nothing will change with the setup I have right now. So, after taking a good long look at my own heart, I've decided to remodel. I can't do anything until I've done that. It's not going to be easy. It's close to a total tear-down job, and I know I'll need the man upstairs, a carpenter who specializes in this kind of work. There will be dust and noise, and I won't know where anything is for a while. However, the new place will be light and airy, and there'll be tons of space for entertaining and accepting friends and strangers. But by design, no spot to sit and read the comments section.
Thank you, Colleen. I do not typically kiss our guest speakers. So this idea of remodeling, of spiritual remodeling, is powerful. We don't do the prayer of confession each week just so everyone feels miserable about themselves. We do it because we have a God who opens arms to us, a prodigal God who loves so generously that those arms are open no matter what we have done, and opens those arms as we remodel. And when Jesus is speaking to this lawyer in the story today and is speaking to all of us, he is calling us to remodel. And if you may fall into one camp or another, and I'm honored to have a conversation with you on matters of the world. But right now, one of the things that I am hating to read is how many people think you either have to be pro-police or pro-black. Pro-police or pro-black. These are not mutually exclusive terms. Just saying all lives matter does not mean that we don't care about others. When we say Black lives matter, it doesn't mean that we don't care about others. But Jesus wanted us to know that Samaritan lives matter, and the lives of lepers mattered, the lives of women mattered, the lives of gay people mattered. All of these lives matter, and by naming them, you are adding dignity. It does not mean that all lives do not matter. It does not mean that we have to choose. And so one of the things I would like to do today is provide an opportunity for us to put a face and a life and a real story with so much of what you are hearing in the news. And I want you I will share an article with you. If you want a hard copy, let me know, or I can post it online. But a social psychologist from Stanford, she is Harvard educated and goes to serves at Stanford, named Jennifer Eberhard, has done extensive study and work with police departments. She, in one of her experiments, which completely stunned many of the police departments she has worked with, they showed a flurry of images, just subliminal images, flickering of all sorts of different people, either black or white. But it was moving so fast that the participants in the study didn't know what they were. And then after seeing these subliminal images, they started showing more images that slowly came into focus. And the participants were to associate the object as it came into focus with the images they had seen. And when there were kind of mundane objects like a stapler or a pencil, there wasn't much difference between the race assignments. But as she started to show guns, a marked difference came. And it didn't matter whether the person in the experiment was black or white. The images they had been exposed to caused them to more rapidly associate the weapon with black people. And she has repeated this study extensively. It is statistically valid. And she has now worked with the Richmond Police Department, Oakland Police Department, is starting to work with San Francisco. And we have invited her to help us even here at Calvary as a congregation to examine our own implicit biases. You see, she wants officers and wants us to know that we can't always just think our way out of this stuff. None of us wants to think of ourselves as racist. But when we see a person of another race, especially a young black man or a Muslim man, we have associations that very quickly take our wiring into rendering judgment, even if we don't want that to be the case. So as Dr. Eberhard is working with police departments to train so that these split-second judgments are handled differently, so that when an officer is in the line of fire or does have that fight or flight reaction, that they have been trained in a different way, we can work in broader society in the same way. With our children, with ourselves, we have remodeling to do across society. Now, one of my hopes and goals for us today, and I'll just ask a quick show of hands. How many of you here personally know someone who has a loved one who's died at the hands of police gunfire? Okay, a small handful. I would like to invite Emmanuel McCarter up here at this time. I've known Emmanuel for about 2 years through San Francisco Achievers, one of Calvary's focus partners in the community. And I'm grateful that Emmanuel is willing to be here with us today and willing to share his story. So I welcome you to sit here with me, Emmanuel, and let's talk. Hello. So, Emmanuel, for starters, would you just tell us a little about yourself, where you grew up, and some of your passions?
I grew up in Houston, Texas. I lived there my whole life until I was about 14 years old, and I lived in Austin. And then I moved to San Francisco about 4 years ago. And over the years, I started to develop a passion for music just because it was something that I would be able to express myself in, and, just let out a lot of things that I can't. But,
Emmanuel, will you share 10 days after your 16th birthday? How did your mother awake you? What happened?
So it was the night. I'll start with the night before. I was talking to my brother about my father, and I had felt a real like weird tension in my body whenever we would talk about my father, and I just told him that God kind of gave me like a message. He was like, I don't know, I just felt that my father would die soon, and so my mom woke me up the next morning. And she was crying, and I already known that she was like, your father has been shot by a police officer in Texas. And, we don't know what happened. We don't know if he's alive or if he's still here, but by that point in time, I already knew he was gone. And yeah, so 30 minutes later, I got a call from my aunt. Well, not me, but my mother, and she let her know that my father had passed that morning.
What do you know about the circumstances?
So I actually got a chance to see the video, but basically he was unarmed, and he tased my father, and people's reactions to tasers are different because it clenches your body up. You don't really have control over it. So my father, he started to run back with his hands up, and then the guy just chased him down, threw him down on the ground, and then the shot went off. Of course, he said that my father was reaching for the gun, but my father wasn't that kind of man that would just try and reach for the gun. It's been an excuse that's been going on for years, though.
And where did this happen?
This happened about 3 to 4 hours outside of Houston in a small place called Jasper, Texas, specifically Newton County, and it's really had a real history of racism over the past, 100 years. And he even had past experiences while he was a kid, like a group of people, like in a car while he was like 11, 12 years old. They said, "We gonna get you, boy," and he had to run out into the woods to save his own life, and that was the only way he survived. But
At the time he was shot, was your father in what should have been a dangerous location?
no, he was going. He was at his childhood church because he was back where he was raised. That was where he was raised. It was a church that he had been going to since he was a kid. Since he was a baby boy. As long as he could remember, he went to that church, and he was going there after a dispute that he had with a family member. So I guess he needed somewhere to go, just to get some kind of faith or some hope. So he was in front of the church, and that's when the police officer arrived, and there was a witness who saw what happened, and he explained to us what happened. But yeah, he was in front of his childhood church just looking for faith.
Just to repeat, he was in front of his childhood church. Emmanuel, how did you deal with that then? How have you processed that through the years?
I can't really say how it affected me. I wasn't really aware of it, but I just kind of not really ignored it, but just became numb to it because I wasn't going to sit around complaining or crying or, trying to make excuses for myself for why I couldn't succeed in this situation or, get some kind of good out of it. But I saw, I have two sisters, a mother, a grandmother, two nieces, and a brother. And I had to kind of step up and become like a strength figure for them. I had to stay strong for them. I had to, give them support, because whenever I can't, be mad about something or like keep on feeling bad about it if I have all these people looking at me for support, for emotionally, even financially. So yeah, I just kind of became numb to it, and then 2 years after, it just kind of hit me that my father was gone. Once the anniversary came around again, it was like he wasn't gonna come back, and it's been a bad feeling, but I just kind of came numb to it over the years, more and more numb to it.
When you hear about shootings, whether it be here in San Francisco, Mario Woods, or Philando Castile, Alton Sterling, how does that affect you?
I just look at it as another one's sacrifice for I don't know what cause, but I just look at it as something that is real. Like, I don't know if everybody else is all surprised about it, but like, I'm not, because I've seen it happen to my father. They just kind of throw it under the rug and pretend like nothing ever happened. And like, it's been happening for a number of years, and it's just that people are now starting to see it because they have video cameras, but it's been happening for the past 150 years since, slavery ended.
Manuel, can you tell us a little bit about your family history, your grandfather's history here in the city? Where did he plant, put a stake in the ground here in the city, and what are you trying to do to honor his legacy?
So basically, my grandfather, he was an entrepreneur. He was a dentist, and he owned a amount of property here on the Fillmore, 3 blocks up. And back in the 60s, they tried to kick him out, like they did a number of other black members of the community. And they tried to give him a fake deed that said that, we'll give you your property back, just get out. And so they kept on trying to kick him out, and he ended up writing a letter to the governor at the time. I don't remember who it is, but he ended up becoming president later on. But he wrote a letter to that governor, and he said that they were trying to kick him out of his property, and they said that you can't do that, it's illegal. So that's the only reason why me and my family are still able to live here in Pacific Heights. And so yeah.
What is it like being a young black man in Pacific Heights?
Honestly, me and my cousin, we were just talking about it the other day, but I feel like I'm always getting these weird looks, like I'm not supposed to be here. Even whenever I had a teacher who said that whenever she saw where I lived, I was walking outside my house, I walked up a block, I was like, oh, Miss Corbello, like, she was my Spanish teacher at the time. I was like, how you doing? She's like, oh, where do you live? I was like, oh, I live a block up that way. She was like, oh, I would expect for you to live on the other side. And I was like, see, like, it was just like a mentality that's been going on, and it's like, I don't even feel comfortable just sitting on my front porch. Like, I'm always getting these weird looks, like I'm trying to rob the place or something. I don't know, like, or whenever I'm trying to open my tradesman entrance to go get my trash cans, I've had like a number of times where a cop would stop and watch me open it, or like I would just like be trying to open it, and I'd like turn around and there's a cop sitting there watching me. I'm like, I turn around, I'm like, I live here, man. Like, what do you want from me? And honestly, I just try and stay avoidant from them whenever like stuff like that happens. But I just feel like I can't even be comfortable in a neighborhood that's technically, historically mine, but it's turned into a new thing, and it's new faces. But I feel like, even whenever I'm walking around the neighborhood, I've had a number of instances where I'm at the park. It's just a number of things that I don't really mind explaining, but I feel like it should be, just because I'm here and there's not too many people here that are my pigment, my skin pigment or my skin color. I feel like I'm kind of like avoided or pushed away, or who is this, especially late at night whenever I have a hoodie on or something. I don't know, I'm just always getting weird looks, and makes me feel uncomfortable, but over the years I've gotten more used to it.
Emmanuel, when white people or people of other hues of skin say Black Lives Matter, what does it mean to you?
It really sends a powerful message, in my personal opinion, because, whenever a Black person, of course, I'm going to say that my life matters, but I'm not saying that nobody else's life matters, but I'm just saying, like, whenever I see a white person say it, it gives them more power, believe it or not, because I'm going to say this, we are conditioned to value something from a white person's standpoint, like, oh, when a white person says it, okay, let me re-explain this. Okay, so basically, like, whenever I say, like, oh, that's racist, or that, calling somebody out for something, like, or like my mother or anybody of that, Black, they're just gonna think of us as another, stereotypical mad Black person saying, oh, stop killing us, or, pulling the race card, saying, oh, everything is racist, but whenever like a white person calls that other white person out on their racism, they kind of put their hands up like, oh, like, maybe it is something that's real, or that's like, that has value, believe it or not. Because once they see it come from somebody of their own skin pigment, because, it's kind of something that's happening outside of you guys, I would say. And although it does, like, there is reverse racism, I would say that just whenever I see, like, you or just anybody that agrees with me that, my life matters, or that the racism needs to stop, or, we need to come together and show love, it just makes it that much more powerful and one more step closer to, having peace, in my opinion. Because I've had a number of instances where a Black person says something and they're just like, oh, whatever. But then, I had a friend back in Texas who's half white and half Black, and his little sister, she looks like she's white, her hair is lighter, but he looks Black, but she looks like she's more of the white side. So one time, her Black friend was calling her friend out about something racist that she had said, and she's like, oh, whatever, that's what you guys always say. But then, like, whenever she spoke up, it made a difference. And it's sad to say that's the way society is, but right now. But I feel like just those little steps make it bigger of an impact.